For more on the situation on the ground, we are joined by Amnesty International's Cidia Chissungo. Good to have you, and thank you very much for your time, Cidia. What are you learning around how far Podemos is willing to go to change the outcomes of these elections, which they believe were rigged?
So basically, just based on what we have been documenting and also hearing from civil society in Mozambique, there is a huge fear that the situation will only escalate as people have the impression that the government is not listening to their concerns. And at this moment, there are many different layers of what is really leading people to the streets. It all started not only because of the lack of transparency that civil society and opposition have been mentioning during this election, but also how police has been responding to those who decide to go on the streets and protest, and specifically related to the 21st of October, when people wanted the only thing they wanted was to just pay kind of like a tribute to the lawyer and also the spokesperson of Podemos that were killed early on the 18th of October. Since that time, everything has escalated. The way police has been responding is with violence, and right now we are observing that protesters are also retaliating, and we have seen the same situations not only in Maputo but all over the country, where police stations have also been targeted moments after, for example, a police officer shots a protester. So right now the tensions are very high, and the biggest concern is the way the government has been communicating. And one of the things, for example, that we have noticed is that even under all this tension, children, for example, are still expected to go to schools. Schools are still having their doors open to have children going to school. And as we saw, for example, yesterday, one of the children around Maguanini in Maputo was killed because the way everything is being handled by the government of Mozambique, it's a little bit concerning. Let's put it like very concerning, to be honest. And civil society, just even today, Mozambican Bar Association was giving a press and saying that there is a need for a national dialogue, and the president should have called this. But the fact that to this point, there is no dialogue that has been called, and tomorrow people are expected to go to the streets, and the way police have been responding, it puts doubts whether the safety of protesters will be observed tomorrow. That's why, as Amnesty, we keep calling on authorities to stop the crackdown on protesters and also release all the protesters that have been arbitrarily arrested. And also, one of our biggest fears for tomorrow is that, just as it has been happening in the past few days, internet can also be down tomorrow. So we also call on authorities to keep the internet on so that people can have access to information.
Yeah, let's talk about SADC. What is their official position on what is happening in Mozambique? Are they seized with this particular matter? What is the role that they can possibly play, or is it limited, if any, at all?
So at this point, everyone has a role. Everyone has to be able to call on the government of Mozambique, on the authorities, and based on evidence, and we have seen people being killed inside of their houses, sitting, and they were not even demonstrating. They were not on the streets. They were not doing anything. So it's everyone's responsibility at this point to ask and demand authorities to respect people's rights. That's not a situation of whether people can or not, if SADC, if the AU can or not. Everyone has to call on Mozambican authorities to respect the right of protesters and stop the crackdown on protesters. And all these voices in Mozambique now that are raising, people have the right to express themselves in a peaceful way, and all this have to be respected. If the government of Mozambique, based on the evidence that have been collected by civil society and different organizations internationally, just like us as well, is not listening, then we have to add more voices to this. Of course, SADC has to say something. The African Union has to say something. The whole international community has to say something before something even worse happens. And tomorrow, there is a big fear. So many voices should join the call for the end on crackdown on protesters, because as we have seen, it seems like people are not willing to give up on the idea that they want transparency and they want their rights to be respected in Mozambique.
Cidia Chissungo, much appreciated with Amnesty International. Thank you very much for coming on this evening.